At least till Ruben gets here. He had an appointment. He'll be here about 15 minutes.
He's close by.
He's close.
Juan Buendia,
Ian Heichuk.
Kathleen Vance, LMA Greasewood,
Here, your mics are on, please.
Sylvia Hendricks,
All your mics are off.
Anna Marie Stevens.
Thank you, Mr. Dan. We do have a quorum this evening. We'll continue with tonight's meeting and agenda. Number 3 is our routine business. Letter A is the approval of July 16, 2024 board meeting retreat agenda. Without objection, a motion to approve. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Kathleen Vance. All those in favor? Masapo. Majority approved. We'll move on. Number 4 is our information items. Letter A is the site presentations from primary and intermediate. Ms. Jennifer Enriquez.
All right, good evening, Board President Buendia, governing board members. So I am gonna start with our 3-year plan. I like to call it a continuous improvement plan because I believe that we're continuously improving from year to year. Our mission statement is we empower our children to have a strong cultural identity, to conquer challenges and contribute to their communities and their journey of life. Our vision statement is all our children will be given the foundational skills to become college and career ready and embrace their himdag. So I'm going to start with some data. This was our attendance data for the 23-24 school year. We had some hiccups along the way. We did have a few months where there were some grade levels that had the 90% or better attendance, and then school-wide, we ended the school year at 85%. Not exactly hitting our district goal of 90%, but we've met this summer with our office team to see how we can ensure that students are coming to school every day and that our number is. I believe he said it was part A of primary in your binder. Did you find it?
I'm looking.
Okay.
I was following that. It's intermediate.
So if you look at the yellow tab, it should say primary part A. There you go. All right. So again, that's the attendance data. We didn't finish at 90%. We're hoping this year that we will increase it to that 90%. Here is our second grade benchmark data. We did the graph so that you can see the comparison from the pre, the mid, and the post. So if we look at second grade ELA, we decreased the not proficient from 45% to 10%. And then the second grade math, we also decreased the 36% of not proficient to 11%. And that's what we really wanted to see. Our next goal is to ensure that the minimally proficient is also decreasing, whereas the proficient and highly proficient are increasing. Our third grade benchmark data, again, in both ELA and math, we did decrease the not proficient in ELA from 61% to 32%, and in math, 77% to 23%. The next slide is our AASA data. Allison put the comparison for us from 2022, 2023, and 2024. So if we look at third grade math, we went from the minimally proficient from 89 to 57%. We increased our proficiency from 1% to 11%, and our highly proficient from 0 to 1%. In ELA, we decreased our minimally proficient from 91 to 73%. We increased the proficiency from 5 to 14, and we increased our highly proficient from 0 to 5%. We were a bit worried when we had this test because this cohort this year are the COVID kids that started online in kindergarten. So to see that they are making those gains is an indicator to us that we are doing something right. Obviously, it's not as high as where we want it to be, but we are making those gains and we're making sure we're celebrating that with the teachers. So moving into our goals for the year, our first goal is we will increase math proficiency by 25% by utilizing assessments and benchmarks aligned to standards in order to accurately predict assessment results for kinder through third. We listed our action steps that we are going to be utilizing. This is also in our SIOP, and we're going to be presenting this to our staff on Friday. So our first action step is aligned to the essential components there in the second column. Each grade level team will meet to analyze student performance on assessments aligned to learning objectives and identify the areas of strengths or improvement. Our timeline for this is going to be weekly or bi-weekly, depending on the length of the unit or standard taught throughout the year. Myself and Ms. Pablo and our SFA facilitator will be persons responsible for that, along with our grade level leads. Our second action step is to identify specific math instructional practices aligned to the essential standards. We're going to be doing that through our weekly PLC meetings, our professional development that occurs monthly, and weekly lesson plans. We're going to conduct classroom observations to observe teachers' instructional strategies and how well they align with the instructional outcomes. That will happen weekly starting in August and through weekly lesson plans. And then we are going to determine the effectiveness of the school schedule to positively impact student learning. And we have already done that. We revised our master schedule this year. We're still going to teach by content in grades 1 through 3, but we're going to attempt a block schedule for our students. I know they're young, but last year we said the same thing when we had the content teachers, and they did extremely well with it. Goal number 2 will be to increase language arts proficiency by 25% by having a common understanding of what students know and will be able to do, understanding beyond textbooks and using it with fidelity. Our first action step for that one is to monitor SFA to ensure implementation with fidelity by weekly walkthroughs and documenting areas for improvement. We want to individualize PD so that we can focus on what teachers need. We want to have our professional learning communities meet weekly to collaborate to review data. Could include but not limited to student work, exit tickets, etc., and improve instructional practices. Our professional learning development calendar will incorporate models of instruction, SFA beyond textbooks, cooperative learning structures, language and culture, and data analysis. And then we want to integrate engaging activities that connect to the learning objective. The timeline for all of those are weekly throughout the school year. And again, the school leadership, which consists of myself, Ms. Pablo, and our grade level leads will be persons responsible for that. We added a third goal of attendance, being that we did not meet our mark this past year. So our chronic absenteeism rate was 57%, and that was actually for the year 2023, I believe. We haven't received the rate for 2024. So we're going to utilize the 57%. We want to decrease that by 25% within the next 25% each year for the next 2 years, so that we've lowered that number. Excuse me. Our action step for that is we're going to regularly meet with the attendance committee to review attendance data and create incentives. We're going to have our committee will display data, including goal setting to decrease chronic absenteeism. And we want to try to come up with a plan to meet with parents and guardians to develop an individual attendance student action plan versus having them sign an attendance contract. So our school-wide goal, and you'll see this on the next part with the models instruction, is also to move our students from from staying at that dependent level type thinking. So we want to create independent and collaborative, is that one not in there?
I don't think so.
No, it is in there.
Oh, okay.
Oh, it's just the next page.
Sorry. To create independent and collaborative critical thinkers, for students to take ownership of their learning and to gain a deeper understanding of what they are learning. And we want to empower our teachers with the resources and support needed to engage students in the learning. So what are we going to use and how are we going to do that? So through our curriculum, we have beyond textbooks, we have content YAGs, Success for All, iReady. We have adopted at a school level, we've implemented a top score writing program. We have professional development, and then we've identified 8 standards school-wide that we're going to utilize to support our students. For instruction, we're going to use the models of instruction, which includes direct instruction, guided practice, cooperative learning structures, such as SFA, Kagan, Building Thinking Classrooms, and AVID. Independent practice, and you're going to see a lot of checks for understand these, not just at the end of the lessons, but throughout the lesson. Professional development, our reteach and enrich block is going to be more focused, and our OFC, which is our observation feedback cycle. The assessments that we'll be utilizing are common formative assessments, our quarterly benchmarks, our synergy. We moved from School City to Synergy, uploading and gathering data from that platform. Our Success for All benchmarks, professional development, we're going to have data dives, and then again, using our observation feedback cycle for assessment. Do I move on or stop here for questions? Okay. Any questions?
Are there any questions?
I just wanted to make a comment. On your goal number 3, I like that you're gonna meet with parents and guardians to develop an individual. I think that might be really advantage in helping you gain that, get to the goal that you're wanting to get. Because I think that they need to understand, that they need to be there every day or make some type of accommodation if they're not, in order to keep going and, gaining, learning, things like that.
Yeah. We also want to see, is there something that they need additional support on that they may not feel comfortable or not know that they can come to the school for support that they may need. So we want to know too, like, what can we do to support you individually instead of putting you all in one group and just assuming you're just not doing it, but let's not assume and ask, like, what can we do to further support?
Or what the parents need to help the student.
Yeah. Thank you.
Do all of the classes utilize the Beyond textbooks at your site? Or do some of the classes not use the Beyond textbooks?
So last year was our first year implementing it, and we felt that they didn't get enough time to see what is actually in the platform, because there's so many different resources, forms, documents that they can utilize. So they were kind of picking and choosing. This past summer, we brought in a team to work on, okay, what is it from Beyond textbooks that your particular grade level needs? So we brought 2 in for each grade level, and they created a binder of resources that includes a pacing calendar just as a quarter. Rather than seeing it for the whole year, let's focus on 1 quarter. And then they put in all the assessments that could be utilized for that. They also looked at what are some communication tools that we can utilize, what are some handouts that we can give parents to support whatever is being taught in the classroom. So they created those for their grade level, and on Friday, they're going to meet with the rest of their team who weren't here, so that way they can go over what is included for each quarter, so that way we're not looking at the whole year at a glance, we're looking at a quarter at a glance to see what is it that our students need to learn for each individual quarter. We also had them do a report card correlation because we're standard-based. So sometimes those standards are just priority standards, so you don't really see all the supporting standards. So we made sure that they made that document for, especially if there's new teachers, you come in and you're like, I don't know exactly what I'm supposed to do, but more of like a little guidance for them. So that way they can keep adding or taking out. But this year, it's gonna be mandatory that we're only using beyond textbooks along with our supplemental resources.
Okay, yeah, I was just asking that because yesterday, Ms. Kinsey and Ms. Medina done a great presentation on what they do behind the scenes to make sure that the classes or the teachers don't have to worry about like the scheduling and stuff because of beyond textbooks and the assessments that come up and those sorts of things that you just mentioned. So I'm really glad that you're gonna look focusing more on that too, because it's gonna help with the data, with the testing. And so the third grade is the only ones that get tested, right?
Correct. With state, yeah.
Yeah, for the
But we
state.
as a district we're gonna be doing benchmark assessments. We had to also look at different ways to assess, like our K-1, because putting them in front of a computer and having them take an assessment isn't developmentally appropriate. So we've been looking at that very strategically. Ms. Pablo actually did the kindergarten one because we didn't have a lead for kinder. So she made sure she was incorporating, they still have to do paper and pencil, but we also have to teach them those skills. Because, some of them come in and they don't even know how to hold a pencil. So we're scaffolding how we're giving those assessments to those students.
And I really like the fact that you're gonna be looking at that, the modeling for what they're looking at the other sites or at the intermediate school. And hopefully, we haven't heard from the other, the secondary, but the engagement part with the students and collaborating with their peers and, just opening their minds and stuff. So I really like that part, so.
Yeah, my team, my math team went to a conference 2 weeks ago called Building Thinking Classrooms, where they really focus on that engagement and students working together, but also making it a safe space, because we've seen that sometimes kids get, I can't do it, so I'm gonna kind of sit behind. But the strategies they learned are for building that and incorporating that in student engagement, and for the teacher to kind of back off. They still are observing, but they're also challenging them on how to think at a higher level. I took 18 of my staff members to another training on how to elevate our classroom using all those different type of strategies. So we came back with a plan on, okay, pick 2 strategies that you learned that you want to incorporate, what will be the timeline, and then how can we best support you in doing that. Ms. Kinsey did go to the Building Thinking Classrooms with us, and she already sent up a follow-up email to my staff offering her additional support on how we can implement that throughout the year.
Nice.
Yeah.
Ms. Anna? With that, when we were talking about their benchmarks that they're meeting with those 2 areas that they want to achieve, is that gonna be monitored throughout the year, and like how they're improving, what they're gonna be doing? How, I know that's done usually when you do walkthroughs, but what other ways are you gonna monitor their progress? Yeah. Right.
So we didn't want to do it the whole year because things happen. Classroom management happens, behaviors happen, power goes out, just different things. So we wanted to make sure that we did it, give them a goal that they can focus on at a quarter. So Ms. Pablo and I met and we decided, okay, you're coaching these teachers, I'm coaching these teachers, and then we're creating a plan as to when we're gonna meet with them so that we can go over the plan that they wanna focus on. And like I said, the time frame dates of check-in, it's not gonna be check-in with me now and then check-in with me at the end of the year. We wanna do it strategically so that we have maybe 2 to 3 weeks of time, depending on what the need is. If it's a first-year teacher who's struggling with classroom management, we want to ensure that we're meeting with that particular individual weekly, because we all know if you can't control your classroom, there's not a whole lot of learning that's going to be happening. So it's going to be based on years of experience, what kind of support they're needing, and then we'll go from there on how quickly we'll be following up. But again, it's going to be quarterly goals rather than a year goal.
Okay. Yesterday, we talked about benchmarks and different things. So one of the questions that I think that I had and I saved for today was what will be done to train parents? Because I know Sylvia brought that up as far as understanding the benchmarks besides at your parent-teacher conference.
So one of the reasons behind the calendar this year of incorporating 3 half-days for parent-teacher conferences is so that every year in the teacher contract, they're required to stay for 4 additional nights. So for the parent-teacher conferences, since they don't no longer have to stay at night because they're going to be occurring in half-days, we're going to utilize those for parent nights. So teachers will have to pick, okay, what do you want to do for a particular night? Say first grade wants to do a first grade math night. So that way we can bring in parents and show them, okay, these are the things that your student is learning. With the curriculum work that we did, they had to come up with ways on how they're going to communicate with families quarterly or weekly or bi-weekly of what are we learning this week? What are we learning this quarter? Some tips on how you can support your child at home. We also have a parent and family involvement committee. Last year or at the tail end of this past year, they started with the bingo nights and they incorporated the culture into that, and we had a huge success with that. So we definitely want to continue with that. And parents were even saying, when are you going to do another one? Because they wanted to come back. So we're trying to make sure that we are within our calendar when teachers come back, that we're calendaring those dates so that we have those parent and family nights.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything, Ella?
I was just going to comment on the goals that set up and also the attendance. That I'm glad that you're going to go through all that process and help our kids, to work on their attendance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I spoke a lot about our models of instruction. When we went to Elevate, well, since we started Elevate this past year, are they familiar with, have you? Okay, so when we saw the whole becoming a dependent thinker, or increasing our dependent thinkers to independent thinkers, Ms. Pablo and I were like, okay, we got to get this going. So we came back initially after our first meeting and started putting things into place on how we can build the collaboration with our students. How can we build the engagement with the students? And those are just a few pictures. As you can see, we have, my favorite is this little one at the bottom where she has her hand here, and she really was thinking on what the teacher was explaining and how she can create whatever she was creating on her whiteboard. And if you look at all the pictures, all the students are centered around one person or around a group, and they're really focused on what they're working. So as you do walk through our classrooms this year, you're going to see an increased level of that. So again, those are our vision and mission statements at school site level and our district level. So the why for this, for our staff, is to have, so that they know the continuous improvement, to provide clarity, to offer this as a resource guide, a support system, and again, to build that agency and rigor within the 2 classrooms. To the right, you have the model of instruction that BUSD has put together. And then the 2 in the middle, we really push the cycle of effective instruction with our active instruction, our teamwork assessment and celebration. We talk about that all the time, and we want to make sure that they have that visual. The one at the bottom incorporates so much more with the OFC, our monitoring, our data, our collaboration assessment and curriculum. So I thought these were just two nice graphics to incorporate what we're trying to do with our students and staff. So we're going to be going over our direct instruction, our guided practice, what cooperative learning structures we have in place, our independent practice, our check for understandings, and how not only staff, but we will hold ourselves accountable. So for our direct instruction, that's the teach and model piece. So you'll see the teacher is the resource, it's intentional planning. There's specific criteria for what they're teaching and modeling. The teacher will explicitly teach to the standard. There'll be predetermined tasks. And this is where we use the backwards planning. What are we going to use as an assessment? And from there, how does that build our lesson so that teachers know, okay, I'm not, and it doesn't mean we're strictly teaching to the test, but we're also teaching test-taking skills, because a lot of times we see different types of questions and students don't understand how to answer those questions. The guided practice is that work together piece. It's more teacher-guided versus teacher-led. Students are demonstrating their learning. Students are working together. Teacher is consistently providing feedback and encouragement. Students work purposefully and cooperatively in groups. And then you'll see the productive struggle. And that's what we want to teach kids, because they learn by mistakes. So it's okay to not get it right, but we're hoping that the students can teach each other, because sometimes they sit there and listen to a teacher and it might not make sense, but they learn better together. The cooperative learning structures, it's a collaborative process. Students are grouped heterogeneously. All students are active participants. Students demonstrate that mastery by working together, and student is doing the thinking versus the teacher. And then you'll see either learning, they're called learning labs or learning centers. So again, this is going to be given to the staff. There is a link that teachers can go view in a file for additional resources on what some of these cooperative learning structures look like. We've taught a majority of these within our PD. So when we do PD, we do it like we're teaching a classroom. So that way they can follow up and say, so then we follow up and ask, how can you utilize what strategy we just used in your classroom? And then they talk about it in their group. So all our PD, we try to do what we would do when we're teaching a classroom so that they can get those resources and implement them into their instruction. And then the independent practice. This is where the student they are mastering the concept. They demonstrate the learned skill. It's all student practice, teachers just monitoring. Student is doing the thinking, and again, we want to see productive struggle, because then that lets us, it's an indicator for teachers to understand that I did not reach the student, what can I do in a reteach so that I can better support them next time. Checks for understanding. It's going to be throughout the lesson. The student demonstrates the learned skill. It's a range of tier 1 to tier 3 questions. Pre-planned questioning, student is doing the thinking, and then it's the peer-to-peer and or independent. So again, checks for understanding, we used to think that it's just at the end of the lesson, but we also want teachers to understand that you can do it throughout the lesson. It can even happen before to gather that prior knowledge by asking questions, completing a KWL chart, which is what do I want to know, excuse me, what do I want to know? Did I do that wrong? The W is,
What do we know? What we wanna
sorry,
learn,
what do we know? What are we going to learn?
and what do we learn?
And what did we learn? Introducing new vocabulary and gathering the background knowledge. During the lesson, they can do a think, pair, share, total physical response, thumbs up, thumbs down, listen to discussions, ask open-ended questions, scaffold questions, use technology, quick write or whiteboards. And then after the lesson, exit tickets, a debrief, questions, roam the room. Students explain their learning written or verbally. So for accountability, when we went to Elevate, I heard this quote, schools grow when people grow. And I felt like that really resonated with us, that if we are stuck in one way of teaching or one way of doing things, our school is never going to grow. So for admin, we created we're working on it, a continuous improvement progression plan so that teachers are aware of the check-ins and the goal setting and what we're implementing throughout the school year. We have an evidence of formative feedback that we're going to be utilizing with our teachers. We're going to be using qualitative versus quantitative data, our observation feedback cycle, and then the formal evaluations. For teachers, again, observation feedback notes rather than just sitting and saying, okay, I'm going to do that. We want them to take those notes so that we can follow up and create action steps for them. We'd like them to do self-reflections, their lesson plans, their data, their assessment data, and then the qualitative and quantitative data. It's not a trifold, I'll have to go back and fix that, but that's the quarterly information that I spoke about earlier as how you're going to communicate to families, parents and guardians of what is being learned. And then we are having students be accountable where they're going to have their own data folders where they're tracking their learning and how they can create goals for themselves as well. And that's going to happen from kinder to third. So we have a rubric by quarter for the expectations. So quarter one, 40% of the classrooms will show evidence of models of instruction 100% of the time. We're going to increase that to quarter two to 50 to 70%. For quarter three, it'll increase to 75 to 89%. And then by quarter four, we should be seeing 90% of classrooms showing evidence of models of instruction. The 2 sheets of Costas level of thinking we provided to all of them, and we'll have to probably refresh it and give them another copy this year on the different types of questions that they can ask, ranging from the lower level to the higher level. Again, with the building thinking classrooms, we're going to have thinking tasks where they're problem solving activities and mental puzzles. You're going to see that implemented in math classes this year, and then hopefully by next year we'll implement it into ELA. So you'll see the vertical non-permanent surfaces. We're not going to focus too much on flat whiteboards on the table. We're going to have the whiteboard chart paper on the wall where kids are standing vertically doing the work. And I believe that is it. And that was it. Questions?
I don't have a question, but I reading and looking at some of the differences in how we're going to try to approach, I think in any and all of the walkthroughs that I've seen and been a part of, that instant feedback or that instance to be able to actually kind of, and I don't know how you yourself take our input and then apply it. But I feel like this is kind of a culmination of all of that because I've seen and hear a lot of different things that we talked about at the same time. So, of course, like you said, continuously progressing and continuously growing. One of the questions that I had, and this is probably to Mr. Diaz, so I want to pose it to you as well, is not only do we have some issues with student attendance, but staff attendance, since to kind of throw little wrenches in the whole loop too. Have you kind of thought of like how and what you're going to do to make sure that you're kind of trying to get ahead of it to some degree or whatever you can do? Because obviously you can't make people come to and do what they're supposed to do. But I think in the sense of what the plan would be if that happens to happen.
Oh, we really haven't discussed at a site level. I know we started the conversation with Mr. Diaz on, I know primary does have the highest absent rate with staff.
Oh.
But we try to look at, okay, what is going on with that? Our kids get sick a lot. And they bring those germs to school, and therefore our teachers catch whatever they have. There are some who it takes, from what I've heard, 3 to 5 years to build that immunity with our little ones, because I know when I first started teaching, I was sick all the time. And then when COVID happened, now teachers are iffy about coming to school because everything spreads so quickly. So we're constantly reminding our students, wash your hands, don't touch anything. There's been very many times where I touch something and it's wet. I don't know what it is, so I go wash my hands. A lot of the times they're out is because they truly are sick.
Yeah.
And I can't have them come to work if they have a fever and, then they spread it to one family and then those kids take it home to maybe their their elderly grandparents. So I don't know how to resolve that issue. I mean, we could put incentives behind it. I've had teachers where I had to send home because they're burning up in a fever, but they know of the sub shortage.
Yeah.
And they don't want to put that on us. I don't know what the right answer is for that. I know we've looked at it to see what we could do. But just like with student attendance, what are other ways that the community can support with that? Because when we have kids who are dropped 3 times a year and then they're re-enrolled, we already know they're going to be behind.
Yeah.
So our question is, what can our community do to support with that? Because our hands are tied if we can't even get the parent to understand how important school is. So I don't know if you have an answer to staff absenteeism.
Hello, President Buendia, members of the board. We have made efforts in getting together with some community members and find ways in how to collaborate for them to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. It's going to be an ongoing work and an ongoing collaboration to be able to do that. Definitely, that's something that we're going to be looking into and see how we can support as well.
I have a comment on that. I know at one time, there was a purchase that was made during the COVID of those, machines that would clean the classroom, like during the night or during after school or whatever. I think maybe the possibility would be to start using that again, just to be safe. It might be extra, but then it might help, and then also with the masks and stuff, we can start encouraging, if there's kids that come to school and they're like that, is put a mask on.
Yeah, and some of our teachers do
Those are some
that.
of the things that we can do here at the school, also with the reaching out.
Yeah.
Mitigation, yes.
Yeah, I think if COVID taught us anything, it taught us how to try and mitigate some of these things. But I agree. I mean, I think what your thought process is now, which I really am encouraged by, is more of it's more collaborative. It's not just one teacher having to put together not only their whole year of coursework or what they're going to do, but they're sharing it amongst each other to understand. Here's what we're going to teach as a group, as a grade level. So maybe that helps to mitigate the learning loss if there's a teacher that's not there for X amount of days and someone's standing in or however it goes. And I don't know how you I know you have to manage it somehow, but I don't think we've seen anything that makes me concerned. I just wanted to know, like, if you were preparing for however you were going to address that. But I think that's a really good suggestion. If we have any other means, especially for our little ones, because we know they're going to get sick. We know every year, and share those germs amongst each other as well as the teachers. So yeah, I guess that would be what I would say is if we can push out more information as much as possible. I know you're going to be meeting with parents and all that for attendance, but also I get a lot of parents ask, when should I not send my child to school? Because they know sometimes their child is either just not having a good day, but you do know they need to be at school, but they claim to be sick. So those are always good things to hear when it would come from the school. Like, these are the points when your child should and shouldn't be. But just some roundabout thoughts. So that's it. Anything else?
I do.
Go ahead, Anisana.
I do like the cooperative learning structure and how you go through it with your staff and thinking about and focusing on how they could implement that in their classroom. Even for myself as an educator, I'm like, that's interesting. I want to learn more about that. How do you do that? So I appreciate everything that you do. I think that you take the time to make sure that your staff is being supported, and also how they can engage with their students. So thank you for your efforts.
Thank you. I can't take all that credit. If I didn't have my AP, I probably wouldn't be as far as where we need to be. So I always had a strong admin team, and Katrina does a lot. So, I mean, she's even here to support me today, so.
Good job, Katrina. Thank you.
Ms. Vance?
And I too love these pictures. It really shows that they're really thinking and wanting to know and to learn, and that's good. These are the types of pictures that we want to see. Yeah. I mean, I know, and yesterday we talked about how having fun is having fun, but it's different when you're learning something. So these pictures demonstrate that part, so that's something that we really, and when they had the tutoring over the summer and they had the Legos and all of that, that was amazing.
They had so
That
much
was
fun doing
amazing.
that,
So I
yeah.
think more of that can be implemented in those types of settings in the schools where they're learning with each other and encouraging each other, and then they see the excitement of what they've done. So I think that's really gonna help. So I really just wanna say thank you for for your presentation, because for me, it's like this new year is gonna be exciting, and then you are working on how to make sure that those things like the attendance or the data or whatever it is, that you're looking at those two to make sure that this coming year they're going to be increasing. So thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Ms. Anna.
I was gonna say, she brought up some really good points when you were talking about, your expectations for 2024-25 was the thinking task. I really like the idea of having fun and using puzzles and implementing it into like the math concepts. I think that's really amazing. One of the big things that I like is the vertical whiteboards. I think those are something that it teaches students to, one, work as a team, also critically think about things, and being comfortable, being able to get up and speak in front of everybody, because I think those are things that prepare them for the future and moving forward, and if that can be done across the board.
Yeah, and one thing we learned, the reason that they are vertical is if you think about it, when you're sitting too long, especially little ones,
Yeah.
they get tired, they get bored, they're checked out.
Checking out.
Whereas if you're vertical, now you have the blood flowing. And so you're still moving, but you're focused on what you're doing. And yeah, we might have some fidgeters, but again, those are our kinders and first that we have to teach how to be focused.
Always on.
Yeah.
No, just to circle out, let me round out, thank you. And again, nothing that I have seen or nothing that I've been able to observe as much as I've tried to be present as possible has ever other than been your support, not only from your admin team and everyone else, but those that have been really, adamant about trying to lift up the level of, teaching or rigor, or whatever it may be, for all of our students. And I really appreciate that. That's has been and always will be, at least what I can see, is the vision of that school, the foundation. And we set the bar there, and then they go on. You mentioned, and this is part of your other presentation, about the bingo nights, which were so popular. Like, everybody was really excited. So I'm really glad that y'all are going to try to circle around it and put some things together that'll be really good for the community, and at the same time showcase what you're doing with that's I've never seen it, and I didn't get to attend at 100 or so, maybe more parents
We
and
had
families,
quite
which
a
was
few, yeah. And it's funny because the kids
great.
were teaching the parents how to say the numbers
Yeah.
and aught them, and they're like, no, that's not it. And they're like, I go to class, you don't, Mom. So the kids were teaching the parents and the guardians, so that was a really good thing to see.
Yeah. There's always those, what we're doing for the community and how we're engaging, and those are the types of things that I think we miss when it comes to just taking an interest as a parent or someone to be present. Goes far away for them, goes a long way for
Does,
them to be like,
definitely.
yeah. So
Yeah.
awesome. Thank you for everything. Oh, Miss Sylvia.
So I really appreciate, the presentation you made, and I see, I guess, in the future, of these students as they progress from one grade level to they're ready to go to the next grade level, and that's what I like to see. And with the type of model and the type of engagement that these students will get or will be part of, I think I actually see that. And I guess I'm assuming that you're working with like third graders to go into fourth graders and working with that principal in that school in order to prepare them.
Yeah, and that's what the whole focus is. They're not, in kinder, they're very dependent on the teacher. And you see that decrease as they get older. So we want to make sure that we're not just hitting third grade, but that we're showing them at an early age so that way they know, okay, I can't depend on my friend or my teacher to do the work for me. Eventually, I'm going to have to do it by myself. Yeah.
Miss,
And this is off still, Aaron.
anything, Miss Ella? Are you okay? Good. Thank you, Miss Enriquez.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Enriquez. Good job.
Okay,
Ms.
we'll turn
Miguel
it over
Lewis.
to intermediate campus, Miss Miguel Lewis.
So, I can be loud and use my teacher voice. So.
As they're getting the audio set up, it is time for your quiz. Yesterday, we spent a lot of time in the system. Remember, this year is the year of structures. And one of the things that we're going to be looking for is,
What?
I'm ready.
here's what,
Here's what, then what?
so what, then what.
what?
So what we're looking is part of the system is, what is that data? What is that data telling us?
So,
So what is the analysis of that data? Then what are you gonna do? And part of the system, what we're looking for is, what are the needs? What are the promising practices that are gonna be implemented, and what is gonna be the accountability part? So, and your test is gonna be, to pass the test is, when I hear you say, what is the system in place, or what I notice in your system in place, is that based on those chunks that we went over yesterday. So I'm gonna be observing you, taking notes to see who passes the test.
what do we get? No.
I can't tell you. It's the exit ticket.
I tried to help. Okay, so this is Indian Oasis Intermediate Elementary School. So I have my 3-year plan, models of instruction, and data in one PowerPoint. So I didn't separate the two, so it's all together.
Was it this one or?
Yes.
The updated one? the
I
summary?
believe you have the one from the previous year, so that's an old one that you have in your binder. So follow the one that is the pink one, yes. So thank you to Mr. Cody and Miss Hiloa and Miss Morales. So they went in and changed lots of it to where so it can come from a teacher's point of view of how they can explain it in their words, because I mean, I put most of it together, but I needed their input as well. And so I was like, I'm sharing this with the staff. So like, what do you guys, how is it going to be more clear to you as a teacher? And so they came in and they changed a lot and made it more clear for them, so that it'll be clear for the other teachers. So, our mission and our vision. And so our big thing was looking at our goals. So year 1 was clearing the land by creating fun and engaging lessons. And so we started that, and we were promoting our fluency in reading and math. And so now we're building on it. So right now we're on year 2, is building the structures. So we have our mission and vision statement, our school-wide clarity that will you'll see on the next slide, and our community involvement and our updated SIOP goals and our walkthrough goals, and using our effective resources and our data and having a continuous improvement cycle throughout the year. So that's our big aha for this year. And so we have a big chart that will show you probably in the mid of this PowerPoint. And then attendance. And then so year 3, so we want to make sure that we have 80% of our students who will score 70% proficiency on standards. And so that's what we're building on for this year. And that students will achieve 90% attendance by school, grade, teacher, and content level. And so our school-wide clarity is that creating the models of instruction by having aligned lesson plans to beyond textbooks. We put unwrapped documents because that's how it's worded in beyond textbooks. That's how the teachers know it, so they changed it. Having clear learning targets, clear success criteria, and that it is student-friendly so the students understand it, as well as when visitors come in, they understand what it means. And having essential questions and explicit instruction, having rigorous questions in the classroom, and that so the teacher can ask, are the students really learning what they're being taught, and how will they know that they learned it? And so that leads us to our student clarity, is that it is student-friendly and that the classroom design to support student learning is in place by having visual aids and having examples to reinforce student understanding. Because we notice that we can teach all day, but do the kids really understand it? Did you even show them? Did you give them examples? Majority of our students are visual learners, so we need visual aids that the students can understand. And then as well as when they take it home so they can explain to their parents what they're learning. And making it challenging in the classroom by making sure that they are using academic conversations, rigorous sentence stems and questions, and that they are collaborating among their groups. All students are going to be placed in groups of 4. So all the classrooms are going to be set up just like the picture on the corner, and so that they are working in teams. And we want to make sure that the teachers are listening to what the students are saying, and that's how they can identify if the students are learning. And then checking for understanding, using the engagement strategies from Kagan and Avid throughout the lesson, by making sure that they are reviewing their success criteria to make sure that the students are understanding what they're learning, and using the formative assessments effectively. And so I'll show you that later on in the PowerPoint of how they're going to use the assessments, and making sure that they are using timely feedback and not waiting till, like, just grading a paper and leaving it in piles for it to be there for months and never give it back. So we want to make sure that they are giving effective feedback to the students so they understand why they didn't get it correct. And so our SIOP goals that we have in place, oh, I went too far. No. Let's see. Okay. Well, for the school, not SIOP. So for the school district was that 80% mastery for 70% of our students are better on standards. So to accomplish this goal, we need to have our SIOP goals. And we want to have PLC meetings twice a week and have our data dives and make sure that the teachers are really having deep conversations on their concerns and the root causes. Why are the kids not getting it? And what are their next steps, and what are their interventions that they're going to put in place? And making sure that they have effective lessons. And so this is a sample of one of the lessons of what the components are in each lesson that they will have. And so they will make sure that they have their learning target, their success criteria. And then there's strategies that they will be using in the classroom, as well as using Avid and BT. Because BT is a non-negotiable, they will have to use it. And so now to our SIOP goals. So math is that Indian Oasis Intermediate Elementary School will increase math proficiency by 25% or higher by utilizing assessment and benchmark data to effectively increase instructional practice quarterly. And then for ELA is that we will increase ELA proficiency by 25% or higher by utilizing assessment and benchmark data to effectively increase instructional practices and intervention for those who have not demonstrated mastery of the required content or skills. So how we're going to do this is making sure that we align the instructional practices using beyond textbooks, increase our engagement strategies, and aligning PD to the needs of our students and staff. If a teacher is not doing well teaching a particular standard, then that's where we come in and we give effective professional development for them. And then as well as going into the classroom, I'm missing one. I'm going to come back to that one. So we have our walkthrough goal that we want to make sure that as admin that we increase the amount of walkthroughs by going in the classroom often. So in order to make that happen, in our CSI grant, we put that our reading interventionist will monitor the student data. So that takes away time from myself and Ms. Morales, my AP. So then our reading interventionist can focus on that. And our counselor and our behavior specialist can focus on the behavior part. And we're not having to sit in the office and do investigations. If it's severe, then that's when we will get involved. But all the little things that they will handle that. So hopefully our CSI grant will approve it, and we will have those in place so that we are more free to get in the classrooms. And then as well as utilizing our school-wide mentor and teacher leads once the CSI grant is approved. And then we also created an AVID goal that we will consistently implement focused note-taking in all school-wide classrooms. So this will be based on instructional practices focused on higher level questioning infused by our models of instruction that we will have in place. And all this is going to be these are the only teachers that went to AVID over the summer, as well as our paraprofessionals. And so it was a big, wide, like learning that they did because they've never gone to any type of training for instructional strategies. And so this was really big for our paraprofessionals, and they're like, oh, I could use this. And now they understand why we carry our AVID binders. And now I don't sound so crazy when I talk about AVID. They understand me now. So they will be doing our professional development on what they learned, because we were all separated into different sessions. And so they are going to bring back what they learned to our professional development. So it's going to be all run by our staff on professional development for AVID. And then our walkthrough accountability, we are going to focus on questioning and engagement. And most of it is going to be through our professional development. What we see in the classroom is what our professional development is based off of, and our teacher-led PD. But our main focus is using higher order level thinking questioning. And so there's a sample that is shown on here. Each binder that the students have, it is going to be all color-coded, so they will all have a science level 1, level 2, level 3 question stems already ready for them that they can use in their classroom. And so they will have one for every subject. And then engagement, our biggest focus will be using the Kagan and the AVID strategies, and as well as SFA. And then that's it on that part. Let's see. Now, a timeline of the accountability for engagement. We did most of the training already, so most of the staff already know how to use Kagan. They know how to use Avid strategies. They know our RCA house systems, but we will be learning GAT now and more cooperative learning type strategies with SFA. And so Q1, we want to build on it, reteach it, making sure that the lessons are still fun, and implementing celebrations. A big part is SEL, that making sure that the students are felt welcomed in the classroom. And that's where the class building and the team building comes in, because I feel like we had good attendance last year, but in a lot of it was because the kids wanted to be there. But it's just trying to get them to be there every day was difficult. So we want to make sure that we have a strong foundation with the class building and the team building and the think, pair, share. That helps a lot with the students to build their relationships and that they a sense of belonging to our campus. And so by Q4, we want to make sure that all these are in place, the programs that we're using, the SFA, the Kagan, and the level of questioning, and making sure that our students are able to have academic conversations, and making sure that they are able to take over a lesson, be able to talk with each other and collaborate instead of just the teacher teaching the whole time. And so when you go into a classroom, you will see mats similar to what is on the picture on Q4. And then there will also be mats for the models of instruction that hopefully when the CSI grant gets approved, we will have those in place. And so some of the strategies that we have to make sure that these things are getting done is, these are just pictures of them, but they were already mentioned, like BT, Success for All, Kagan, and Avid. And then we want to make sure that we are incorporating culturally relevant lessons. All the pictures that are on here are things that I myself created and had the teachers use, and which aligns to state standards. And so we want to try and create more lessons like this that teachers can use, and so that the students can see themselves in the material that we use and understand it. So then when they get an assessment or a state test that it's not foreign to them, they will understand it. And so now to our data. There was growth in all grade levels from the pre and the post. But I feel like the students needed more motivation and more time to monitor their data. Unfortunately, the post test doesn't align with the AASA test. We didn't have much growth on the AASA test, and we feel like the root causes were because of not being prepared for the testing. And so we want to make sure that we are monitoring our teaching strategies effectiveness. And so we have a plan in place of how we're going to do that, and making sure that our lessons are aligned to the state standards, and making sure that we're coaching, the admin are coaching with effective teaching strategies, and making sure that we are checking for understanding. So all the slides that are in here, they are examples of how we're going to make sure that students are learning. And so this is the 5th grade. The pre and post, there was a lot of growth on here as well, but we do want to build on our celebrations and recognitions. With 5th grade, we noticed a big increase in vape use, And so we feel like this was a big part of why our students may have not passed. And it's new to us. It's hard to identify when a kid is or has been using vapes, and I really don't know. Like, I can assume sometimes by looking at them, but I don't know for sure. But there has been a big increase in vape use. Many call outs with our fifth grade team due to medical reasons, and then not being prepared for testing, and a lot of behavior, but the behavior was related to a lot of the vape use. And a big thing that our teachers feel was that the lessons are not reinforced at home. Like, they learn it in class, then they go home, and then that's it. Like, so we want to make sure that we build on it, like do a review, maybe a cycle of the standards that they have learned. And so we are going to, again, monitor our teaching strategies that we've used and make sure that we are following through with what we want the students to learn. And the same thing with sixth grade, there was improvement from the pre and post as seen in the graphs. Unfortunately, the scores were not as expected of what we thought we would like it to be on the AASA test, and due to a lot of the behavior and vape use again, and not prepared for the testing. So we want to make sure that we're teaching testing strategies. So our big push for this coming school year is to make sure that our lesson plans are regularly reviewed and improved based on collaborative feedback using our data. So our first step is that the teachers are going to submit lesson plans. They're going to be due on Friday, and then during professional development, they're going to meet in their teams, and they're going to review their lessons. And on BT, there's many resources that you can pick from, and we're noticing that teachers are using different resources and not the same resource. So we want to create time in PD so that they can look through the BT resources and see which one is going to be the most effective to use and the best test to use from, because they do have a multiple choice test or a response type form test, and we want to make sure that they're using both in some form so that the students are able to explain their thinking and that they're still able to use multiple choice. But we want to make sure that we give them time during professional development to review those lesson plans, make sure they're all on the same page, they all have the same strategies that they're going to use, and then the next week we're going to hold the teachers accountable by having each team present their data and what worked, what were the trends, what didn't work, and then we will give them feedback. So it's not just me or Miss Morales telling them what they need to do. It's going to be a collaborative feedback to them, and it holds the teachers accountable, because I know, like, if you taught something and I saw all my students didn't pass, I would be upset with myself, and I would want to go find out what did I do wrong, and I will want to fix it. And so this is a big way to help get the teachers to be accountable for what they are teaching. And so we want to make sure that this continuous improvement cycle continues, and so we're going to do this every week. So this is going to be our big push for this year. And then, which all that also aligns with our work that we have already created, which is from year one, using all the resources and making sure that we're reviewing our curriculum map, our YAGs, which are BT, and then making sure that we're doing those interventions. So we did include an intervention block in our schedule, so that'll help a lot. We did experiment with it last year, where we paused SFA for a whole month and we did interventions, and there was a big improvement in scores. And so we want to make sure we continue that. And now to our attendance. We did reach our goal school-wide. We were at 91%, so we're very proud of that. Unfortunately, 30% of our students were chronically absent, and which was 79 students out of 255 students who missed more than 15 days. And by state, the Arizona state, it is 13 to 15% on average. And so we're doubling that of how many students are chronically absent. And so, which also affects our letter grade. It has a big percentage of our letter grade goes to our attendance who is chronically absent. And so we want to make sure that we are promoting this with parents this year and making sure that we are reaching out. Crystal, our parent liaison, does a wonderful job of keeping track and calling parents. But I think we can step it up by making sure that our teachers and staff are also taking part in that and not just our parent liaison. And maybe that'll help a lot. And then we have incentives in place. We put in a proposal to get incentives for our students. So fingers crossed it will get approved. But if not, we will also come up with other ways to have incentives for our students. But this is just one example of making sure that, or encouraging our students to come to school every day. And then, and one way of doing that is to make sure that we have community involvement and family engagement. And so, like Ms. Enriquez said, we do want to make sure that we utilize those evenings to create family engagement activities. And overall, teamwork makes the dream work. And that is pretty much it.
Thank you, Ms. Peguelos. Appreciate it. One of the things that I was appreciative of seeing was, and I go again, like you said, you mentioned not all the best that we wanted to be able to see and observe is when it comes to the state testing, but I was appreciative of at least all of the context that you guys put together to say, okay, well, here's how, or here's what, and here's how we're going to do better, or at least try to. At least try to. I don't know, and this is just me. I don't know if it's appropriate to. I don't want to say appropriate. I don't know if it's more supportive to try and engage some way early on. I know we have an SRO, we have individuals who are kind of more understanding on some of those concepts than we are when it comes to drug and alcohol use. But vaping or anything else to that degree, I don't really see anything that would speak to not, you know what I mean, like preventative measures as opposed to us feeling the actual repercussions of it going on in the community. So I don't know if there has been discussions further with the SRO on what other types of things are we expected to see when it comes to prevention types of work, rather than him coming to put people in cuffs and do whatever he needs to do when it gets that far ahead. But maybe that's something we can just get from you or from over, because I don't know. I don't think I've ever heard from anything on the SRO.
We did have several workshops during the year for parents, and one of them was on substances and vaping. Also, there's always room to grow. Definitely maximize the support that we have from the counselors and continue to provide those workshops that are going to be preventative. And based on a influence that we have, the office of the governing board and the office of the superintendent to continue to engage with other entities outside, because this is going to be a problem that is not only affecting our school system, but it's also affecting our community. So the more we work together on this one, I think the more results we're going to get. and target those parents that need the support, and it translates to kids acquire help as well. So it is our commitment that we'll continue to work with our entities and organizations within the nation and outside to be able to bring the resources, but also find ways in not only how to teach the parents, but also how to hold each other accountable.
Yeah. No, I agree. I'm not saying that it's not the responsibility of the community, but what I don't want is to hinder us as a school to say that's the reason, that's the cause. Because obviously all of the students are gonna have multiple different reasons, but we've already got them in the school. This is the school with the highest attendance. I don't want that to be something that we then kind of cut them off at the knees of, well, you're here, but you're all vaping, so now you're not learning. That's a little bit if that helps you to understand what I'm saying when I see that written there, then that's what I mean. But I think if we're gonna have all the kids in school as much as they love to come to this campus, I would hope that this year is gonna be a whole, I mean, and it will be because of what I've seen, at least what you've been able to as a group, not just the principal, but the teachers taking ownership of it, is definitely some increases. And I don't know if maybe that means those weekly or those walkthroughs or those weekly get-togethers or collaborative meetings that y'all have, maybe they do in turn have short-term set goals as opposed to over the year. I appreciate that some campuses have different, ways that they're doing things, but I feel like setting a quarter goal as opposed to a semester or a year goal might give you more time to switch it up. You know what I mean? Before you get to the point where we're at this point where the scores didn't align with how much students were at school and what they should have been taken away from it. But I'm hopeful. I mean, like you said, there's always room for improvement, and I think it's going to be the point where we need to be more upfront, especially as the board, about where we are and what we're observing and what we can give you as far as feedback and in what needs to happen or what should be happening or whatever it may be. But I'm
And
hopeful.
I think even just looking at the data that we collected as of the students who are coming that have the vaping issues, we notice majority are the walkers. And so this little desert right here is a big area where it happens before they come on our campus. And so maybe we can even work with the SRO or somehow have, I guess, the police in that area somehow before, between 7:15 and 7:30 while they're coming to school.
I was hoping to be
Yeah.
engaging with like parent volunteers or people in the community, since that's what we want to lean towards, is to say, hey, we could really use the guys' help between 7 and 7:15 before you go to work. Just stand here and be a presence. They don't really have to do anything, in my opinion. Go ahead, Mr. Diaz.
President Medina, members of the board, this is a good example to exercise what we learned yesterday. I want to remind us of what are the big goals. We have 5 big goals that we need to achieve, and most of the energy is going to spend there. However, there will be, as part of the tier 2, tier 3, some students are going to need additional support, part of the essential 10. To do so, here's what, well, based on the data and the observations of the principal, vaping is affecting. That's the here's what. So what? It's, well, we need to do, go above and beyond. And one of what we exercised yesterday, what we practiced yesterday, this is the time to now ask my principal, and next time we meet, to come back with now what is your system in place for this year to prevent and reduce that, including increasing surveillance for the SRO officer, recruit some volunteers, maybe recruit some of the students also from the high school that may be good role models and support. But yesterday, I reinforce that we have 5 goals that we're gonna be putting our energy to ensure that we focus. what I don't want is to create so many different goals that is going to separate us apart, but find where does that fall into our goals. Going back, we have our 5 goals that we're going to reach, and one of them, so a section of the students, not the majority of the students, are being impacted based on the observations of the principal. So let's ask our principal now to put a system in place to reduce it and bring in a preventive provide the progress, and for us to continue to support and provide additional support, so we can address the students and the families in need.
Well, that was what one of my questions was going to be, is in regards to, you have the good attendance. I guess I was assuming that because you have good attendance, that your data was going to show that. And so, and I guess regarding the question that, what, what is your systems in place in order to get, and then hearing about that 79 out of the 200 have the 15 days absence. But, I'm just trying to figure out how that is part of your 90%.
Yeah. So it's, some of them are, some of the students were, a lot of the students where they would meet the 10-day, they get dropped, and then they come back. And so they know the system, they know how it works.
You don't count
And
those
then,
days in your,
yeah. And then, if they're not there, like if they show up late, then all those half days add up to a day. And so we do have multiple students coming in late, which are our walkers. And so we do have a plan in place that we do want to decrease it by 20 students for our more. And we want to make sure that these incentives that we have in place will help in that way, and making sure that our counselor and our behavior specialists are checking in with these students. And we do plan on sending out letters to the students who have 15 or more days that they have been absent, to send them out now before this next school year starts, so that the parents understand that it does affect us as a school, and as their child, it affects them academically. So we do, that has never done before, so we want to make sure that we start it now. So we are going to be sending those letters out. So in case any parent tells you.
Well, I think the incentives are good and well, and if because I know that in regards to my granddaughter, that's what, excited her about coming to school, but then also her increase, because she is special ed, and she's gotten, she's got so good reports, I guess, because she's here every day, and she wants to continue that. So she's here even earlier than when school starts. So because she don't like to miss days, and she don't like to be late. So.
Oh yes, we've had a lot of parents very upset with us who did not get 100%. If they were tardy or they got checked out, then the parents would get upset with us because they didn't get perfect attendance and they didn't get an incentive. So those are the good complaints we like getting. But it, unfortunately, parents don't realize that there's a certain cutoff time of, if you pick them up before this certain time, then they're considered absent.
Is that it, Ms. Evan?
Oh.
Anything else? Intermediate, Ms. Vance?
So, when we're talking about the systems in place and stuff, so for the attendance, you talked about the letters that were gonna go out prior to the school year, so the parents understand that attendance is important. That's one of the things you're gonna do, and then the incentives. And so, is there anything else?
And check-ins by the counselor and the behavior specialist. And then we will also be giving strategies to our teachers and making sure that they are implementing our PBIS strategies so that it creates that team building, collaboration that also helps in the classroom so that they want to be in the classroom every day. And those engagement strategies that we have, that's what builds that, that accountability for them of wanting to be in the classroom.
Good, awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Nadine?
So, I want to see if you can provide some information as far as the culturally relevant lesson plans. Can you share, because I think you did this last year, correct? The success of that program, and have you seen students' behaviors change and growing that sense of pride of who they are?
From the lessons that I've shared with the teachers, the students love them to where the point of where they're stealing our books. So, which is good because they want to take them home and they want to finish the story and they don't want to wait until they continue the story in the class. So that's a good thing. And you could see they're more engaged with the books that we use, and they want to participate, and they want to give more examples, bringing in from what they know into the classroom. And some of our teachers do really good at having the students bring in bringing in their background, their culture into the classroom. For example, there was a story about a rodeo, and some of the kids didn't know what a rodeo is, and one of our students actually participates in rodeos, so he came in and did a whole presentation about it, and so the kids knew what the materials that are used in a rodeo were, and it wasn't by the teacher, it was by the student. And so when those are in place, the kids feel more engaged with those activities, and it feels like, a sense of like, hey, I belong here. This is my school. And so and all of those are created by myself. And since I have the background as a teacher, and then still trying to make sure that it aligns with the state standards and the AASA test, I try and build them both together to make sure that these lessons are in place. And all of my work was also shared with the NAU, and so I don't know if they published it out, but I know but it was shared as well.
So last week on Friday, we did the walkthroughs and we looked at the different facilities. I should have said this when you were up here. I was going to say, I think primary does a really great job in making sure students understand to take pride in their school, and you can see it in comparison to the other campus because it got remodeled. It's beautiful. It's immaculate. There was when we were talking to facilities, they were saying like they have no issues of like people wanting to vandalize. But when it comes to intermediate, secondary, there was a lot of things that they were sharing in regards to people destroying things there, and they couldn't even have mirrors there, but primary has those. So then we had a longer discussion of like teaching students about pride and how it's culturally relevant to make sure that you're taking care of your yard or your house and working hard for that. Because I think one of the things that the facility staff they were frustrated, and they were spending money on repairing all these equipment at these different sites. If I was saying that it would be really great to show, like, look, this is what the primary has. This is what you could have if you don't vandalize this, or if you don't make sure that goes. And how do you trickle that? How do you make sure that follows them as they get older?
Now, Brock states what we learned yesterday. So how would you ask that?
This?
So what system in place?
Yeah, what's your system in place to move forward?
Well,
But it's
Ms.
gonna-
Morales has a plan in place. She has been creating a whole PowerPoint of how to engage the students in taking ownership of the campus. but starting from the teachers to make sure that they know how to teach it to the students, so that they are not destroying dust, they are not destroying the chairs or writing on things that they're not supposed to be writing on. And so there are a few students who tend to ruin it for everybody else. And so, and we try and make sure that we reinforce that why it needs to be clean, or why you shouldn't be destroying property. And so we do have a lot of students who help everybody else, and like tell us, somebody's doing this, somebody's doing that, like they're messing up the bathroom. They'll tell us, and because then I try and tell them, this is your house. This belongs to you guys, but you guys have to keep it that way. And sometimes we have to shut down the bathrooms. And so all the students will get upset about it, and because they have to go as a class. I'm like, well, if you guys can't take care of the bathroom, then you don't earn to go by yourself. You have to go as a class. And so we try and have strategies in place, but Ms. Morales is creating some type of reinforcement for this year, and to teach it to the staff, and then for the staff to teach the students.
I do understand that the ultimate goal is for them to learn and to be learning. But I know that there are issues that come up with students that you have to address. And I think one of the biggest things is trying to teach them how it relates to being responsible.
And I think that goes along with our Essential 44 that we also have in place, that the students make the rules. They're the ones that make the videos for each essential rule that we have, and a lot of them are common sense rules that we have in place. And so we had the videos last year, but I feel like we can build on it and make sure that it is posted throughout the campus. We only have it in 2 places on campus, and we're not we didn't do as well as we should have to reinforce it. And so we're going to be trying to build on that for this year. And so we hope that'll help a lot with the vandalizing of items.
I don't know, I mean, I think a lot of it has to do, and I guess at some point somebody can do a research on the mentality, how it changes from the primary. They're so excited, they like what they do, they do what they're supposed to do and what they're told to do. And then when they get older, the mentality, they start growing and they start learning what life is about. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. And those are the things that I think a lot of kids deal with. And just having that understanding, and maybe that's something that the specialist, Ann's group, can do some type of
Emotional learning.
I was just gonna say that
teaching them how to deal with those type of things, so that way they understand that, they need to protect and take care of what is theirs.
So this is what I hear.
And I think you need to really capitalize on utilizing actual individuals here, not outside individuals that maybe they don't relate to. Not saying that they don't relate to them. And I know we bring in some excellent presenters and have assemblies, but I agree that it just seems to be a little bit of a. And I think of now when you said you stop class to go to the bathroom, what types, how long is that, and what types of learning loss happens because you had 50 minutes to teach a subject, but now you have to go out to take a bathroom break. So you're cutting into all of the actual learning time that they might be having, or may have been had if we hadn't had to stop and go to the bathroom. But I'm glad to hear that the system's in place, at least for Ms. Morales, to try and work on that, but wherever we can be some help.
Yes,
sure.
and we also have an ambassadors group. So we have student ambassadors, where for example, if multiple teachers call out and we need support where it comes to supervision, we'll have ambassadors out, and they all have their own shirt. It says ambassadors on the back of their shirt, and we have them stand around campus and help us monitor the school. And so that helps a lot because our ambassadors are our leaders. They're the ones that are usually our house leaders and our student council leaders, and so they will participate and help with the ambassadors because all the other kids look up to them, and so when they see them, they won't do things that they're not supposed to be doing. And so that helps a lot when we have our ambassadors in place.
The second thing, or at least in a long line of what their questioning was, and to Mr. Diaz, he keeps talking about what systems do you have in place. Is there a system, or can the district support you better with dealing with students that are causing and do cause disruptions? Because if there is a means and if we're not following through, or if you feel like there's policy and or things that the district can do to reinforce, because I feel like I don't like to have students come in and get in trouble and do all of these things and not be given an attempt to, hey, we've had this discussion, we're going to, do this and do that to make sure you're here. But I think at some point it starts to, again, disrupt anything that you're doing as a teacher, anything that you're doing in the classroom, to have to stop and deal with the child who isn't there to learn. So I don't know if there's anything that we've looked at now on whether you're dealing with certain issues or different types of instances that there isn't enough support or enough policy or whatever it may be, or guidance or procedure that can be implemented so you guys are more successful as a campus and not dealing with issues like that all the time. Just a thought. Mr. Diaz?
I need to write so I can,
You look like you wanted to say something. So
yes, I do. I
Go
do,
ahead.
but I need to write.
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
So I know that we're always gonna we have social and emotional needs that our students deal with, and there are family issues that impact our students' ability to learn or focus while they're here. But I think finding ways to understand what's going on in their lives sometimes plays a factor in that, because there's so many layers of different things that students deal with if they're not being supported at home. And how can we help them be a successful student by meeting those needs of those students? And so connecting them to the social emotional team, even your team leads, I think that's a great things, but I mean, there are so many things. For example, you were talking about the bathroom breaks. That takes away from somebody's ability to focus if they need to use the bathroom and they have to be waiting to go to the bathroom. And it does cause issues as far as like health issues. So those, those are just things that happen. So I want to make sure that things are being done to make sure that our students' emotional needs are being taken care of, which I think you guys do a great job at, but how can we improve?
Yeah, and I'm hoping with the new cameras that this will help tremendously with the new cameras so that we can get those students who are abusing, the use of going to the restroom like how they're supposed to, and whoever vandalizes the campus, then we will be able to utilize the cameras so we can find those students instead of everybody having a consequence. But right now, our cameras may not always work. There's a lot of glitches and they're not as clear. So we're hoping that these new cameras that are put in place will help a lot with that.
Want to say something before we get to Ruben there? Your campus is always, is I think one of the best campuses for the community involvement portion, because you've had so many community programs come to the school throughout the year, and it shows your campus is also one of the best campuses that takes pride in the houses, that really, really go out and show the community what the houses are, and that, the kids understand that your campus has always been at that 90% or above throughout the year, most of the entire year compared to the other campuses. So some of those things are good. And so you're finding ways to figure out how the data isn't matching that. And so that's good because you have a system in place. So I know this coming year, it's going to be even better and your grade's going to go up. Yay.
Yes.
Okay, Ruben, take it away.
Take it away. And this is part of the spiral, essential 10, essential goal 3, essential 10, part 6. We have from this baseline the idea and the vision and the goal and the objective to get to success by following our 5 goals. The more we talk about these goals and connect everything to these goals, the more we're going to be moving forward and reach toward our success. Yesterday we mastered 2, and I think today we're going to master a little bit more. What is the first goal? Goal number 2.
90%,
You can achieve
90% attendance.
90% attendance and 90% parent view. What is the last one? Number 5. Huh?
Engagement?
Who said that?
Engagement.
Engagement, engagement, and culturally relevant. Now, here's the next ones. Number 4. Yes. How are we gonna supporting challenge? What tools are we gonna give to supporting challenge to change the status quo? And the last one, this is the specific for the teachers as to the how.
Essential 10.
Yeah. Essential 10. Or essential 10. To be able to get from the base to the success, we have made a commitment on the strategic plan that this year it's about the structures of systems. The system, it has 3 steps. What are the needs? What are the promising practices? And accountability. There was alluded today. Well, let's teach part of one of the ways that we can reinforce goal 5 by being culturally relevant is let's teach pride in the school. Is it from the base? Is it going to get better? It's going to help us to get to our main goal, which is number 1? Absolutely. How? What is going to be your system in place? Let us know. You identify the need. What are you going to do differently? How are you going to know you're going to meet that goal? So as we continue today and tomorrow, this is the core of this year. And we need to understand everything that we ask is how is it going to connect from the base and get us to one of these goals so we can reach the most powerful goal. Is it as an organization, as partnering, as how much is going to be from 80% coaching, 80% incentives, 20% policy. So that's a number, a key number that we want to look for. everything that we do, 80% of what we do, 80% of the videos, 80% of our report has to do one of these goals. And 20% what else? 20% is what else? Everything that we ask, anything that we ask is, well, if it's a need, well, then I want to see the system in place, or I would like to see next time we meet, share your system in place, since you pointed out that that's a need, that is going to impact our goal. What we cannot do is start now going different directions with different areas or different goals, unless they are stop by and somebody can address. For example, the social emotional learning is a perfect example. Can we bring in, if vaping is one of the needs or one of the problems, can social emotional learning address that issue? And I want to go back on a next month or on a quarterly basis report, so that the social emotional learning, as part of the engagement, can provide us support, but we so that we don't begin going in all different directions. It's part of the system in place is who is going to be able to take care of it and by when. That's what we want. That's what the meat of year 2 is going to be. As we're building capacity, the more we understand it, and this is a review and follow up. Now, you heard what the big goal in the district, how we're going to support from the district in the curriculum instruction, and we have the different departments that you will hear from each one of the departments, the 3-year goals. But now is how then the big district goals now filter into the side goals. And you should be able to hear common language in how we're meeting the 5 goals. And our main theme that we're going to be focusing is models of instruction, of engagement. Back to you, President Wendy.
Do you have more? Ella, you have anything for intermediate?
I just want to say that intermediate school to me is the teachers are very enthused in teaching. I mean, and just being there, they're all so happy that to be there. That I'm glad that they're teaching our kids, And but I have a 5th grade there, and my granddaughter, great-granddaughter, and when I look at the score, and I have to get after her, when they were having that attendance, trying to get some kind of prize or something, yeah, so, but I know they didn't make it, And, but during the summer school, I was looking at the scores, and I think that 5th grade did really well, when they showed that last board meeting. And also, when at one time we met with new teachers, and I talked to them, and I told them that one thing that I always like for them is to let the parents and guardians know well ahead of time, not at the grading period, but let them know before that their child needs help, so they don't struggle until the next 6 weeks grading period. And so that's what I like to see, and not when they. To me, I mean, late, to let the parents know so they can help them, or the teachers can help them more, I know the teachers are doing all they need to do, and they're all working really hard to help all our kids, and And so I just want to make that comment, that, the teachers, there at the intermediate school, to me, that the couple of classrooms that I visited, they, except maybe one child wasn't listening, so, but otherwise, the kids are all paying attention to their teacher. And also at the elementary school, there's one teacher that I really admired, and how her kids are really, really good, and I was a second grade teacher. And I was really impressed with her, how well the kids behave, and how really paying attention to her chalkboard that she was presenting. And that's what I like to see, and have the kids all listen and pay attention to their kids. And that's the only way you'll learn, And that's one of the things, all of you, for your presentation. And it's very helpful, And I still have the January one here. And I was kind of comparing it, So, okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Figueroa-Lewis. Much
Thank
appreciated.
you.
Ready for your quiz, your exit ticket?
Shay.
You guys did great on your exit ticket yesterday. Let me give you, and at this point, if with your support, we can dismiss our principals. And the next part is a little review and a little quiz of today, which is simply a way to reinforce what we are walking away with. It's not really a test, but it's more than anything a check for listening. But if you're okay, we can dismiss our team while we do the last part.
Okay.
No. Thank you, ladies. Drive safely.
If we're doing anything that's not on the agenda, can't really not do anything not on the agenda.
It is part of the
It
primary.
just says
and
site
intermediate.
presentations, primary and intermediate.
You want to walk away from.
We
from
can
the
adjourn
screen?
and then do your
Sure,
thing.
we can adjourn and then do.
Can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Ms. Anna Marie Stevens. I'll second. All those in favor? Ms. Sapo.
Perfect. I have
You
five.
okay? Are you voting?
Double, sorry. Yes.
All right, thank you. All right. 5 in favor. It is 7:01 PM. We are adjourned. Thank you.
We can start the screening process.